You'll find all types down in these narrows. Cut purses, cut throats, cut ties, and cut luck. Lot of cutting. Not a lot of string. The place was so chaotic and without reasonable form, it remained unmapped to this day. Far too untrustworthy. It was below the rest of the city, while still not being entirely underground, woven up and down, in and out amongst the bottom rung of the old whore and her society. There were things down here Aziz had never seen, never wanted to see for that matter, but not knowing these things even existed before having seen them. He hadn't known to ask what to avoid. The scenarios were as dark a variety as the mind could conjure. People carving symbols into their skin because some god no one could comprehend or pronounce told them it was a good idea. People tattooing names and deeds onto their arms and hides because the previous gang's leader told them it was what they did. That type of diplomat was the type they had stepped over, after realizing he was going to choke on his own blood, and there had been nothing to do for it but move on and avoid trouble. They overheard some urchin girl coerced into desperate prostitution, learning to barter while at knife point, with the price being that she would be allowed to keep those pretty green eyes, for tonight anyway. They'd just get what they needed from her sister. And that on behalf of some coastal-dwelling fiend named Dagon, who made big demands, hated humanity, and paid his followers in corn? These narrows made no sense and smelled like some suburb of one of the more exotic foreign hells he had heard Aaron, a friend of his mother who had protected them, tell tale of. Even Aaron wouldn't have come to a place like this, crossbow or not. And he was surprised to hear from Tani, who had done a fine job of selling the character of this dark and rotten place, that there were ghettoed hellholes in the world that made this place seem like the palaces of the Padishah. And Aziz had looked at Tani dubiously, but Tani was dead serious. And Aziz had asked what those places were like. And Tani had said he didn't know personally, but a veteran man had told him of a demon-run city of thieves and killers called Zamora, where it was said that torches flared murkily upon uncouth revels in the shadows of a Zamorian narrow called the Mall, where the thieves of the East held carnival by night. And a strange shiver was sent down the back of the young Aziz, who at once thought that his friend's description was as close to a place like that as he would ever dare to go. But another part of him wanted to desperately see what was beyond that dark and shadowy line of such a place. Maybe when they were rich and could afford to hire some muscle. That seemed like a place that required some muscle to get answers and directions. Maybe a drink. Aside from some crossed footsteps with the more colorful denizens of the Narrows. They hadn't seen many others down here, and even though Tani had told Aziz this place was lost beyond mapping, Aziz wished he had a map anyway, if for any other reason to feel like he had some idea of where they were going. They crossed into rooms of empty cages once ruled over by slavers. Crossed into a room where a family was buried in the floor, and then another room with a man covered in names and numbers of tally sat in the darkness with his eyes wide open but seemingly asleep. Two dogs fighting over a human hand, a woman putting blood-tipped needles into the loins of a doll made from rags with far too much sadistic glee in her mannerisms to be healthy or sane. Then they opened a door onto an explosion of violence and fire.